So good to see everyone tonight. We've had a bit of a check-in, but just do a mental check-in into your own body, just acknowledging how you are today. We're going to start on our backs in a semi-supine position today, feeling our spine into the ground, our feet, our legs, and that connection with our root chakra and Muladhara. So when we lie in this semi-supine position, we have this lovely contact, this wide base of contact, this wide base of support as we move into semi-supine. So arriving mentally, physically, energetically onto our mats, acknowledging anything that's with us at this time in the evening or whenever you're practicing. Just acknowledging how you feel. I'm just going to come to sit up for one moment. In your semi-supine, settling in, grounding and stabilizing through our body. So when we're working with our yoga practice, we're thinking about a foundation for this growth, this journey that we're on. And within the first chakra, it's connected to the element earth, of course. And actually, if you want to think about a visualization of a color, it's actually connected to the color red, which is interesting because that's why I decided I needed a paddleboard in red, was because it was connected with the sense of Muladhara, of this root. So thinking about how that is for you. Now, when we think about the location here, we're thinking about the perineum, sometimes the cervix in women. We're thinking about the connection with the earth that we have. So this can be through the legs and the contact that we make with the ground, with the feet. Now, occasionally with some of our postures, the contact with the ground is going to move through the hands. So the hands sometimes work a bit like feet, but it's mainly the lower body. And it's also connected with bones and the large intestine. So within our practices, we consider grounding, widening the base, opening the leg channels, which is why we need the strap for Supta Padangusthasana, strengthening the legs, cultivating stillness, sense of solidity and stability. So with that in mind, while we're on our backs, let's draw our knees in towards our chest to come into Apanasana. Now, Apana is one of the Vayus, and that is connected to the sense of downward flow or downward energy. And Apanasana is our wind relieving pose. So we're considering the energy that moves down. So with our knees tucked in towards our chest, we can do various things. We can roll from side to side. We can bring the big toes together. We can open the knees, moving into the hips, opening up the energy channels into the inner groin. Spiraling here and coming back in the opposite direction. Mobilizing the pelvis here. Lovely. Now, bringing the feet back down to the ground, we're going to get hold of our strap and move straight into Supta Padangusthasana, opening the line of the legs. So we're extending up through the right leg, up through the heel, wake up the feet here if you need to spread out the toes. Now, if you're hypermobile, please do protect around the back of the knee. Do not feel like you need to straighten here, feeling into the back line of the legs and that lovely line of connective tissue, fascia, starting at the plantar fascia, around the back of the heel, the back of the legs, the back of the buttocks, that wraps all the way up along the back of the spine and to the crown of the head. So we're opening up that area. Now, if you have space, and if this doesn't impinge on the lower back, we can straighten out the leg along the floor, hovering firstly. Just acknowledge the sense of strength that is necessary to prevent any rolling to move into the lumbar here. So the sense of stability within the pelvis, and then dropping the heel away. All right. Yeah. The front of the hip point, allowing for that leg to drop down. Breathing here, allowing for that lovely long line to take place in your Supta Padangusthasana. Lovely. Now from this position, we're going to briefly come into Jatara Parivriti with the right arm coming out to the side, rolling the right leg over. Now you'll notice that this changes things somewhat. Don't feel like you need to come into anything too strong here. Just acknowledge whatever's present before you draw the leg back up. And we're going to come into that in a more traditional sense with the stabilizing faculty of the left leg bent at the knee, rolling onto the outside seam of the foot and allowing for the strap to come into the right foot. Be mindful of candles. I have my foot hovering around the candle flame. Breathing into the inner groin, allowing for that leg to come out to the side. And of course, the left hand can come into a T shape, or you can bend and bring the hand to the front of the hip point. Breathing here. And then on the next inhalation, we're going to come into that internal rotation, which is going to be a similar experience to our little Jatara Parivriti, with the hand holding onto the strap on the left side, crossing the knees over the midline. Breathing here, noticing what you notice, whether you feel it in the hip, in the IT band, or somewhere else, maybe around the ankles. And inhale to release, bending the knee and drawing the strap off the foot. And as we drop the right foot down to the ground, let's bring that strap into the left foot, exploring the back line of the legs, not feeling like we need to straighten the knee to feel into this space. And then lengthening the leg out away, hovering the heel and dropping the heel if you can. I've got a brick in the way. Coming into your Supta Padangusthasana on this side. And noticing whether you need a sense of strength to gather and prevent the pelvis from rolling with this longer leg on the right side. So we're aiming for stability. Breathing here, bending that lower leg. Hang on, we're keeping that leg straight, aren't we? So we're going to bring the left leg over to explore slight Jatara Parivriti with the left arm coming out to the side. And this is really an exploration of your own, watching candles. Foot in the candle is not a good one. I've done hair in the candle when practicing, singeing my hair, but not foot in the candle. And then exploring how it feels to bring the leg back out and then bend that lower leg to come into your external rotation. So the strap comes into the left hand, rolling out onto the right side of the right leg, right foot. No need for straightening of knees here. Exploring how this is, and if there's any injury or any twinging taking place, please do work within an edge rather than pushing beyond. And then coming into our external rotation, rolling to the inside seam of the foot, crossing over through the midline, bringing the strap into the right hand, winging out the left elbow, feeling into your internal rotation here. Acknowledging whatever comes up for you. And then on your next inhalation, drawing that leg back in and through, bending the knee and releasing the foot. So you can put the strap aside for a moment, get the feet in about hip width apart, so you're back in your semi-supine, but waking up the toes, lifting up the toes from the ground. We're drawing the knees away from the midline to come up into your 2-foot support. Feeling into each of those vertebrae as they lift and then rolling back down again. Now I can feel this in my quads. Just notice where you're getting the sensation. It's going to be different depending on what you've done today, where you're at. Acknowledging knees. Now, if you have any instability around the pelvis, sacroiliac instability or sacroiliac dysfunction, you'll want to get hold of your brick and pop it in between your thighs as you draw up. Now that helps this sort of sense of drawing together, which will help strengthen around the pelvis. So if you're getting anything around here, you would be better off having something to push into around the midline. Lovely. And then next time we come up, opportunity to come into your bridge, your Setu Bandhasana, by clasping the hands underneath the buttocks, drawing yourself up onto the shoulders, allowing for this lovely long line to take place around the front line of the body, feeling your footprint into the ground, acknowledging how the knees feel. And releasing and rolling back down through each vertebra, of course. And as you drop down the pelvis, keep that motion going by curling the chin in towards the chest to come back into your Apanasana, wind relieving pose. Gathering him here into your tiny little ball, and then dropping the right foot down. Keeping that left knee protected by flaring the foot. We're going to come in to thread the needle, dropping the back of the neck back down. See if it feels right to curl these knees in towards the abdomen. Breathing here. Noticing and accepting where the sensation arises, particularly from the hips. Now this feels really strong for me today. Just notice how that is for you in your body. Maybe bring some movement, rolling from side to side. And coming back to the breath. So how is your breath today? How are you breathing? Are you breathing through your nostrils? Perhaps you're conditioned to do so within your practice. Notice if you're breathing any other way. Maybe you're breathing through your mouth. And then coming in through the midline, we're going to take the hands away and drop the left foot down, coming to the right side, flaring the foot to protect the knee and drawing the knees in. Now you don't have to draw the knees in, you can keep the knees away. This might be enough for you today. Feeling into the hip on this side. And again, my hip feels really tight, tighter than usual. Just acknowledge that within your body, if that's you. Maybe there's no sense of anything particular. Maybe there's a sense of spaciousness within the pelvis today. Just notice what you notice within your body, rolling from side to side, coming back to the breath, coming back to the sense of the breath, before releasing the hand away from the back of the knee and dropping the foot down. So we're going to draw the knees back into our Apanasana and rock and roll along the spine 3 times, rolling to and fro, allowing for the legs to roll over if you feel that's comfortable to do so. And then as you draw yourself forwards, you cross the shins over, bring the hands to the front of the mat and come into your all fours position. Bring the hands underneath the shoulders and the knees directly under the hip points, coming into a neutral, stable space today. Now we're going to move into the wrists and the hands, clocking the wrists to ensure that we've got that lovely, stable base for support, rocking from side to side. If it's too strong to use both hands together, you can do one at a time, spiraling, swinging from side to side, and then doing the same thing with the other hand. And then we're going to take the hands so they're directed towards the knees, reducing the space here, opening up the lines around the wrists, and then spiraling the fingers in towards the midline. And lastly, flipping the hands upside down. You can again do this one by one if you need to, rocking to and fro. Before flipping the hands into their neutral position and noticing if that's made any difference at all with the contact with the earth for you. So we're going to drop the head down, bending the elbows to curve into your scared cat. Feeling into the undulation of the spine as you inhale, coming through neutral, moving with a wave on the breath. Exhale into your extension, keeping the chin tucked in slightly. Inhale. Exhale, dropping into your scared cat. Now, as we work with this, I'd like you to bring in a sense of the pelvic diaphragm. So as you extend into a cow, there's a sense of the pelvic diaphragm drawing down, a release. And then as you curve up into your scared cat, a sense of lifting up of the pelvic diaphragm, a drawing up, as it were. So even as you exhale, which is a drawing up of the diaphragm, the pelvis can draw downwards. So we're thinking about this pelvic diaphragm movement in correspondence with the movement of the pelvis. So when the pelvis is in a posterior, rather anterior tilt, and we've got this lumbar arch, it makes sense for the pelvic diaphragm to move down. Whereas as we draw the pelvis into a posterior tilt, it makes sense for the pelvic diaphragm to lift. So just notice if that's the case within your body, and if it isn't, notice what's taking place. Coming back to your neutral. We're going to step the hands in front of us now to create some space as we wing the hips over to the side to scoop into circles. Exhaling as you draw the hips back, inhaling as you scoop forwards. And then coming back in the opposite direction. Feeling into the hips. And then this time you might like to take circles into a figure of 8, drawing the front of the pelvis over through the midline in one direction, and then drawing the pelvis over through in the opposite direction. See if that's feasible for you to touch base with. You can spend a little bit more time with it if you like, before bringing yourself into your stable tabletop position, spreading through those fingers nice and wide. We're going to lift up the knee and scoop circles, waking up the toes and the feet, keeping a sense of support within as we spiral 3 times in one direction, and bring that leg back in the opposite direction. It's very common for there to be some movement or some dumping of the weight into the right side here. So just draw yourself back through the midline before bringing the knee back up and coming to the other side. Slow circles with the knee, waking up the feet. 3 times in one direction, 3 times in the other direction. Breathing here. Lovely, and bringing that knee back in. Now we're going to step the left foot back. I'm just going to move myself forwards on the mat because I don't like the feet touching the carpet in this position. Feeling into a half plank, drawing that knee in and stepping the other leg out to the side. Now keeping that pelvis stable, exploring drawing through the heel. We're going to lift up through both knees, coming into your plank, and hold this for about 5 rounds of your own breath. Now you don't have to hold for 5 rounds, feeling into your energy, your breath, and how that supports you. Inhaling and exhaling here. We'll be transitioning down to pro, so you know where you're going, either through knees, chest, chin, like this, or through your chaturanga, bending the elbows and scooping yourself forward into crocodile. Bringing the hands down in front to make a little pillow for yourself. Resting the cheek down on one side and resting the cheek down on the other. Now with that sense of contact through the front of the pelvis and the front of the feet, I would like you to think about drawing the tailbone down towards the mat, okay? And with that sense of drawing the pelvis down, we're going to lift up into our little cobra, Bhujangasana. Whether you press down to the mat or work with hovering the hands off the ground, feeling that point of contact with the ground here. Breathing into your belly, keeping the chin tucked in. And then bring the hands down in front of the shoulders. We're going to tuck ourselves back into Balasana, tucking the toes under. So we've got a lovely extended child's pose. Opening up under the armpits. And then bringing the hands, like feet, padding them back to the knees. Let's tuck the little toes under. So we're opening up the baseline of the feet. Now you may want to explore coming up into little tripods, coming into your broken toe Vajrasana, and allowing for the feet to release on the exhalation. Inhaling through the nostrils and exhaling through the nostrils. Closing the eyes, if that helps, to concentrate your mind on the exhalation. And then slowly, slowly bring the hands forwards, spreading the hands nice and wide. We're going to come up into Mongol Dog today. So with that extra wide base of support, I'm going to open my knees out to the outer reaches of the mat, and you can do the same. So we sink the pelvic floor, the pelvic diaphragm, down towards the mat. And as we open ourselves up into our Mongol, feeling into that wide base of support, we can open those legs out even wider. Now it can be helpful in Mongol Dog to bend the knees to fully release into the spine. Make sure you're not holding any tension in the neck, moving the head from side to side. Feel like you could open out the front of the rib cage onto the thighs into your Mongol Dog. And you might feel like you could lift up one arm, reducing the contact with the ground. And you might feel like you can lift up the other arm. Still feeling stable with that contact with the ground. Now from this position, we're going to open up one side of the leg, three-legged dog. It feels slightly different from Mongol. There's less space to move forwards into a high lunge. Now my high lunge now feels a bit squiffy, so if you need to do something similar and adjust yourself, feel free to do so. Kicking out through that back heel, breathing here. And we're going to bend that back knee, flatten the top of the foot, and roll over the heel to come into your half Hanuman. Sinking down. And again, opening up that back line of the legs before inhaling forwards, releasing through the front line of the hips. Exhale, draw ourselves back. Use some padding on the knees if you need to. Utilize a blanket, fold a mat, and rolling forward, especially if you're on hard flooring. So I always have to remind myself, I've got carpet, I've got a rug, and then I've got two mats. This may not be the case where you are practicing. Rolling back, and then taking the weight into the front hands, lifting up that back knee, and move that foot back into your downward dog. Nice little mongrel here, bending the knees, three-legged dog, and drawing that foot forwards into your high lunge. Adjusting if you need to. It may be the case that you quite enjoy this wider high lunge with a wider base of support. Kicking through the back heel and dropping the back knee, using that extra support, a blanket, flattening the back knee, and then exhale, half Hanuman. Inhale. Nice and smooth and slow today. Not taking any sensations too strongly in any way, listening to your own body. Tucking through the back toes, lifting into your high lunge, and scooping that foot back into your mongrel, bending the knees so you can lengthen the front of the torso over the knees here. Opportunity to pad the feet forwards, or if you want to take a bunny hop, we can kick the legs up 3 times, kicking the buttocks, depending on your energy today. And from there, pad yourselves forwards into your Uttanasana, hanging through the head, threading the toes, folding into your relaxed forward fold, feeling into the footprint, bending the knees, and we're going to drape ourselves up into our ragdoll, to move through Tadasana when I need to adjust the screen. So as you come up, the last thing, of course, will be the head. Try not to straighten the knees as you come up into your Tadasana. Keep the knees bent. And bring the hands up into your bioenergetic standing position. So you're in this kind of position, becoming very aware of the footprint, a sense of space around the knees, and the space around the pelvis. So we're neither in an anterior tilt, neither in a posterior tilt, but in a neutral space in between. So we're grounding down through strong quads, but there's a sense of ease. And as you move your attention up to the shoulders, it's a sense of the collarbone smiling, the shoulder blades moving towards one another, a sense of a long neck with the chin tucked in, grounding in this position. And I think this would be a lovely one to try in a field somewhere, maybe at a bus stop. Lovely. And then drawing ourselves out, coming back into Tadasana. So we're going to come into a Kriya, Mala Kriya, utilizing the same sense of bending the knees. There are 3 stages to it, and you can take it at the stage that you need to, because the 3rd stage can be quite strong on knees. So our first stage, and I'm going to show you in a parallel fashion, I think it's quite helpful, is a forced exhalation through the nostrils, and you keep the heels down. It's actually straight arms, apologies. So you inhale, forced exhale, first stage. We're going to do that 5 times. We go to the 2nd stage and we take the heels off the ground and bend the knees slightly more. So that's a forced exhalation. Inhale, 5 times. Now the 3rd stage you can do as a 2nd stage, or you come all the way down. My knees start to click with this one. So it may be worth working with the 2nd stage. And Amanda, if you want to do something that's more still, that's absolutely fine as well. Bioenergetic standing might be best. So we've got those 3 stages and we come back through those stages. Also, Amanda, if you want to work with some breathing pranayama, you can do that, maybe Violoma with the steps, the inhale, stop, inhale, forced exhalation with your own pace. And it gives you something similar to do, but with the breath. So we're going to start inhaling, forced exhalation, heels are down here. Inhale, 3, 4. Next stage. Next stage, lifting the heels, bending all the way down on forced exhalation. Second stage. Keeping the heels down, forced exhalation. Second stage. Heels off the ground. Second. First. Coming back to your Tadasana, noticing how you feel. And letting that energy percolate down through the body. We're going to sink down into Utkatasana, chair pose. Allowing for that angle to come about. And again, with that neutral sense of the pelvis, if you need to ground down through the tailbone. To change that alignment, please feel free to do so. And if you're feeling a bit tight around the shoulders, let's open up that arm position to hold onto a beach ball. Notice if anything untoward's happening with the feet, if you're rolling onto one side or the other. And then lift up onto the tippy toes, pencil Tadasana, reaching that lovely long line along the side body. And then two options here. If you want to sink back into your Utkatasana, or you can swing ski Sunday, bring the hands into your chair. And we can move in and out of these positions, paying attention to whatever needs to be acknowledged. If it's those knees, notice those knees and how they are. Moving between those 2 points, and then bring the hands down through the heart center. We're going to hold the Utkatasana chair pose. Take it lower, rolling onto the heels from the toes, back and forth. How does that change things to lift the toes up, coming into the heels, and roll into the toes, lifting up the heels? How does that change things? Moving between those points. And then with the hand at the heart center, we lift up into our standing. We're going to come straight into Vrksasana. Vrksasana of your choice, whether it's with the heel coming into the inner line of the foot, into the shin, or into the thigh. You'll notice we're not using the hands here, allowing for that stability to come about. And if you found your drishti, your focal point, and your balance, with this mind set in between the hands, we can open up, blooming into summer. After all, it is the longest day of the year tomorrow, summer solstice, allowing for the shoulders to open. And with that, our perspective opening with us. As though the mind is held within the hands here. And then drawing the hands back down through the midline. The mind tracking the fingertips. You bring the hands back down and through. And release, bringing the knee in to the front here. Now it may be the case, without dropping the foot, if the leg's not tiring too much, you bring the two fingers, the middle finger and the forefinger, around the big toe, the hand to the side, grounding here. We explore the Supta Padangusthasana shape in a slightly different plane, opening up to the front here. And if you find your balance in this position, you may want to use a wall. How does it feel to open up? Whoa, into Utthita Hasta Padangusthasana, keeping your torso forwards. And if you're happy here, you can bring the gaze to the opposing side. Tracking through those points, finding yourself wherever you need to sit and settle into before bringing the foot back down and coming into Vrksasana on the other side. Whether it's into the ankle, the shin, avoiding the knee. Finding that stillness, the stability around the pelvic bowl. And then when you found your balance, tracking the mind with the hands as you bloom forth, opening up into your grounded Vrksasana, relaxing around the shoulders, relaxing around the forehead. Holding your perspective wide with that sense of belonging down through the pelvis and the legs and the feet. Making contact with the ground as you track your mind down through the midline on the tips of the fingers. And bring the hands into the heart space. Wing that knee forwards. And again, if you can, and the leg hasn't tired, you can bring the left forefinger and middle finger to the big toe. It may be the case that you're just working here or exploring opening up the back line of the leg. Just acknowledge those of you who have very long legs, what happens with the spine as you're drawing yourself over the leg. You do not need to feel like you need to straighten the knee at all. And then drawing yourself over with the leg here, you can bend the knee, of course. How does that feel? Maybe gazing over the right arm. Breathing into balance here. And coming back through with a sense of control, she says. She almost falls. And then bringing the knee back through and down. Lovely. So shaking out around the wrists here and the feet, wherever you need to. We're going to come into our wider stance into Goddess. The toes are reaching out in tracking in line with the knees. So again, thinking about your external rotation, where do you need to position yourself? Do you need to bring the feet in to stabilize the knees? The knees are really important. Coming into a position that works for you. Acknowledge when you bend your knees, what happens within the pelvic floor, the pelvic diaphragm. Is there an automatic lift? And I'd like you to encourage that by drawing the tailbone down towards the mat. The position changes things. We have this position or this position. We're aiming for a sense of lift with the tailbone drawing down. Coming into your Goddess with your Mula band. So a sense of lift here. And we're going to straighten the knees, looking up through the fingers with that intention set, that sankalpa to truly involve ourselves in the movement. So it feels very Tai Chi, very Qigong, lifting up through the side body and allowing for the sense of Mula band to take place in our Goddess squat. Inhaling now, this time you have the opportunity to engage your Mula band and also explore lion's breath, Samasana. So bending the elbows now. Exhaling all the way down through. Inhaling, reaching and bending the elbows. One more time, as long as you don't have a sore throat. Inhaling, reaching. We're going to hold this with the Mula band all the way at the end of the exhalation. Lifting up through pelvic diaphragm. And coming up onto the toes. How does it feel to sink down here? Being very mindful of our knees before lifting up to the other side. And if that feels comfortable, you can lift up both sides and explore how that is. Before drawing the feet back down and the arms coming to rest. Now, with a sense of movement into the hips, swinging from side to side, we're going to come into Malasana. So moving the legs and the position of the feet, of course, could be really important. Sometimes we start to think quite rigidly, think that we can't move the limbs. Of course we can. Coming into a little frog squat. Then bring the heels down if they want to come down. And exploring how it is to come into Malasana with the elbows pressing into the shins and the hands at the heart space. Rooting down through the perineum, lifting up through the crown of the head. Breathing here. And then dropping the sit bones down to the ground. Find yourself in a position where you can rest the left leg either in front of you or bending the knee and rock the cradle of the baby. Either bringing the hand around the foot or the foot into the arm crease. Feeling into that space. And then dropping the foot, come to the other side. working with the hand around the foot and the foot into the elbow. And you may want to work quite conservatively with this. Lovely. Now dropping the feet down, we're going to bring the right foot out in front and the left foot comes to the inside of the groin. Working for our Janusarasana as we come into a forward fold, hinging the breastbone over the knee. So your drishti or your focal point comes towards the little toe more than anything. So you're coming into your forward fold. Janusarasana. And allow for the hands to drop wherever they need to be. You've got this squareness of the hips in Janusarasana. Unfurling, draping yourself over the knee, thigh, the shin. Draping the mind over that front leg. And then on the inhalation, creeping the hands back up through the middle, winging that knee in, dropping and straightening that leg before bringing the other in towards the inner groin. So spreading through the toes and lovely forward fold. Bring the hands wherever you need to bring them. It can be lovely to bring the back of the hands to rest within this receptive pose, or indeed you can ground through the palms. When you're working with the subtler energies, you may feel a difference if you open the hands to when you bring the hands to ground. Breathing here. Releasing around the face. And releasing around the jaw. And then grounding through the arms, lifting yourself up. Bring both feet in front, come into your Dandasana. So you'll feel the sit bones rooting down. And depending on, again, the anatomy, it may be the case the hands can come alongside the buttocks. Maybe you need a brick on either side. Just acknowledge whether you need maybe little TP shapes coming into your Dandasana. And then with a swivel of the legs, we're going to take the feet out to one side and swivel the legs over to the other side. So I like to do this with arms out in front, feeling into one side and then feeling into the other. Now, if your knees are not happy, please don't come into the next, which is Supta Virasana. Maybe explore Baddha Konasana or an inversion. Otherwise, we're going to explore rolling around and sitting the buttocks in between the legs, noticing how that is on the knees. And if you have a bolster, you can use a bolster behind you. If the knees feel comfortable, how does it feel to lean back into your Supta Virasana, reclining hero? You'll notice I've begun to drape myself on the bolster, keeping the chin tucked in, exploring how it feels to open up that line of the legs. Coming into a soft space, exploring how that is. Before inhaling to ground and root up, climbing ourselves out, being very, very careful about knees as we lift and bring the legs over to one side and swivel the legs over to the other side. And from this position, you're going to bring the feet in towards one another, using a bolster if you've got one available, to come into your Supta Baddha Konasana. If you've got a bolster, you may want to pop the forehead onto the bolster. If you have two bolsters, you could pop one by the side of the leg and one by the other side of the leg, or utilize something which is the same height. Draping the spine and the face over the feet. And if you're using that support underneath the knees, that can really prevent us from hyperextending. And with that attention at the pelvic diaphragm, without clenching around the stomach or the jaw, explore a lifting and a release. A lift and a release. A lift and a release internally. A contraction and an expansion. And you can do that subtle enough so there doesn't need to be a clenching. Like the fluttering of a butterfly's wings. Resting the forehead. And then dropping the head, gathering the chin in, and lifting the torso up and getting hold of the outer edge of the knees. So lift the knees in towards the midline. And we'll prepare ourselves to come down into Shavasana. So getting hold of the blanket, getting hold of your bolster, your rolled up blanket, and make yourself a little nest. So whether it's the blanket or the little block or even a meditation cushion behind the head, lengthen out the neck. If you're using something hard, you may want to use something nice and soft. And we're going to be in relaxation for a good 10 minutes. So make yourselves as comfortable as possible, allowing for the limbs to roll out to the side of the body. And indeed, if you want to use a cover, please do cover yourselves as your temperature may decrease. And I'm going to bring myself into an upright position to talk you through. Indeed, if you want to put some socks on or make sure your feet are covered, you may want to do that, especially if you're in a space with the windows open, as I am. But it's a little bit drafty. Coming back to that sense of the solidity of the ground, the support that we always have through the earth, which can be particularly helpful when we feel under-supported. And you may want to draw your attention back to that region at the base of the spine, whether you consider it as the cervix or the perineum, Muladhara, the energy of self-preservation. And developmentally, this stage develops from the second trimester, so after 12 weeks gestation, to about 12 months in age, so about 1 year old. And the developmental tasks of Muladhara are physical growth, motor skills, and object permanence. It's interesting how these chakra energies connect with Piaget, if you know of Piaget, with developmental learning in children. And when we are balanced in this region of our being, there is a sense of belonging, good health, vitality, well-grounded, comfortable in body, a sense of trust in the world, feeling of safety and security, ability to relax and be still, stability, prosperity, and right livelihood. Obviously, there are many different traumas that can occur within this region. I've definitely had to work through that myself. The trauma, birth trauma, abandonment, physical neglect, poor physical bonding with mother, malnourishment and feeding difficulties, major illness or surgery, there's a huge amount that can change this region. But it's helpful to know that we can always heal by working energetically with these areas. And if you'd like to work with an affirmation tonight, I'm going to offer you a few and you can choose one to hold. Maybe the earth supports me and meets my needs. Or I am immersed in abundance. Or I love my body and trust its wisdom. Now I have a poem to share with you. Feel free to allow for my words to just roll over you. If you're moving into a different space of relaxation, just move to wherever you need to in terms of energy. And this poem is called Wild Geese by Mary Oliver. Some of you may have heard of it. It's a beautiful, beautiful poem. I keep coming back to it. I never tire of her poems. Wild geese. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair. Yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over announcing your place in the family of things. Over and over announcing your place in the family of things. Over and over, announcing your place in the family of things. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. And if you feel the need to bring the hands into the torso, the belly region, heart space, feel free to do so. Acknowledging this body as much like a vessel. A sense of yourself, your higher self, self with a capital S, as Alistair Shearer will put it, or the Atman within. The same self that is connected within all of us. that sense of belonging and our right to exist. Along with all other sentient beings. And that's why it can be helpful to come back to the sense of foundation within our yoga practice. And the foundational sense of stability, of support. With the ground beneath our feet. I'm just acknowledging how you are, where you are in this space, in this moment. If your attention has drawn away and out of the body into the space that you're in, bring the attention back into the back line of the body, that sense of weight moving down through the back line of the body. And I invite you at the end of the following sound to come to roll over onto the right hand side in the fetal position. Bearing in mind that sounds very different, I think, over Zoom. And with that sense of the weight of the body moving down through the sideline of the body in this fetal position, I invite you to ground down and lift up through the arms into an easy cross-legged position with the eyes closed if it feels comfortable. You may want to remove any glasses if you're wearing them and put them aside somewhere safe. Working gently, acknowledging that movement into an upright position. Let's close the practice by bringing the hands into the heart center, rubbing the palms together to create some heat, and bringing those warmed up palms to nourish around the eyes, dropping the skull into the hands. And then removing the hands from the eyes and bringing them down into the heart space to bow in acknowledgement of one another in the space in between. Namaste.